It's time for another Toypixx tutorial, and this tutorial has the power! Hey, Frank, you want to tell that guy to put some clothes on? Nope. Man, when did I become the straight man in my own videos? Hey. Anyway, folks, I'm Photo Dave, and this is Toypixx, a channel dedicated to helping you and helping me get a whole lot better at our action figure photography. So, if that sounds cool to you, go ahead and click subscribe. Now, in this video, I'm going to be talking about the basic 3-light setup that's used in a lot of photography. Hopefully, it'll help you get better at your shots, and hopefully, if I keep it in mind, it'll help me get better at mine as well. So let's just start right now with what those 3 lights are. The first is the key light. That's generally going to be the brightest light that you use. It's at a 45-degree angle, usually from the subject that you're trying to shoot. Just pretty much lights up whatever the subject is. But you know that when you're shooting at an angle like that, just on one side, you're going to get a lot of shadow on the other side, and that's where the second light, the fill light, comes in. What the fill light does is it's set basically directly opposite of the key light so that it can fill in those shadows a little bit with a little more detail, a little more light. And then there's the backlight, which is used to separate the subject from the background. Obviously, the backlight is somewhere behind the subject. And to help us illustrate this whole deal is our good pal, Mando and Grogu. So they're going to help us out. And remember that everything you see in the video today will also have links to it in the video description. Those are affiliate links. So if you choose to pick something up using those links, it helps out the channel, helps out my Cobra Army, and I greatly appreciate it. So with that said, let's just get to the video, shall we? This isn't a hard and fast rule, so what I'm going to do is turn off each of these lights individually so you'll see what happens when you do that, because sometimes maybe you want a lot of shadow. Maybe sometimes you don't want them poking from the back, or maybe you don't want a whole light on them at all. It just depends on the effect you're going with, but this is a pretty basic 3-light setup that a lot of people use in photography. So first, let's just turn off the key light. Alright, well, hey, we've got a pretty sweet silhouette going there. Turn that back on. Now next, let's turn off the backlight. Okay, he's still popping out from the background, so that's good. But that just adds a little something extra, because right now you can't see the top of his head, the top of his shoulders, all that. You do that, and bam, you got that going on. So he pops out a little better with that light like that. And now we're going to just remove the fill light. And there you go. So you can see kind of the point of each light here. Personally, I kind of like turning off the key light. Oops. Turning off the key light just because that silhouette look is pretty cool. Ooh, let's do that again. Yeah, that's pretty sweet. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a little scene, and it's going to star Mando and Grogu here. It's going to use this 3-light setup, and I'll bring you back and talk about it a little bit. So here we go. Now, using what we just discussed, I set up a scene using the camera to make sure that everything was in frame. And here it is. You've got Mando there on the left, key light in front of him on the right. And then you've got the fill light opposite the key light, and you've got the backlight way up high. So he's covered from all angles. I thought I'd add some stormtroopers in just to make it a little more interesting. Some things in the final picture you'll notice Mando is way off to the left, and that's a little psychological trick I kind of learned way back when. I can't remember what I learned it in, but if you're facing to the left and you're way off to the left, it makes the shot feel a little more uneasy. Makes you feel like, uh-oh, something's about to go down. So it's just something to make the viewer feel a little more uncomfortable, I suppose. Also a photo trick here, always trying to put something in front just to give it a little bit of a foreground in front of the subject, and of course something in back. That dial, by the way, is by Beardedwolffe on Instagram. So there it is. That's the whole basic setup. Something else to watch out for when you're framing a shot is tangencies, and that's kind of like, say I were to take it at this angle, and you see how Mando's helmet is kind of lining up with the line of the door there. You want to watch out for stuff like that, otherwise it can kind of confuse the eye a little bit. Of course, we'll make sure that Mando is in focus and everything else is pretty blurry, so that'll help, but still, ideally, when you're setting it up, try not to let that kind of thing happen. Now I'm going to shoot it, and we'll take a look, and go from there.
Well, hello there. It's me, the Joker, here to interrupt this rather lame, let's be honest, who does this guy think he is, tutorial video with a very special message. That message being to make sure to click the link in the description below to save yourself 10% off all in-stock items at Entertainment Earth. It's a good place to save money, even for a clown like me, and if you spend $39 or more, you get free shipping on domestic orders. So do it. And now, we return you to this horrible video. Though I'll be honest, I'd stop watching now if I were you. Yep.
And here, ladies and gentlemen, straight from the camera, is the 3-light setup shot I just, shot of Mando and Grogu. Now, some adjustments I made to the setup, and I'll put a picture up right now, boom, so you can see them. I put a paper towel over the key light to diffuse that light a little bit. I kept playing with it, going up and down, and it was just too bright, so I thought, I'm going to diffuse this a touch. I put a reflector by the stormtroopers to kind of block out some of the light that was coming from the key light, and I raised and lowered the backlight a little bit, and the last thing I did was I actually used my cell phone to just light the stormtrooper on the far right just a tiny, tiny bit, only because he was getting completely washed out by shadow, and I wanted to see the red pop a little bit there. So those were the adjustments I made, but all of you who've done anything creative ever, and why wouldn't you have, you're watching a video about toy photography, you know that there's always all kinds of fine-tuning that you want to do to try and make things exactly how you want them. Even as I'm looking at this, I'm going, oh man, maybe I could have made it so that it wasn't so bright on that stormtrooper, but I digress. That's just what happens. But yeah, there you go. That's how the shot ended up straight out of the camera after multiple shots, of course. Now, don't forget, follow Toypixx on Twitter, because when I put up the link to this video on Twitter, I'd like to see what happens when you guys check it out and follow the 3-point setup or the 3-light setup. I'd like to see in the comments on Twitter what you came up with, because I just think that stuff's always cool to see what everybody else is coming up with. It makes me happy. And of course, comment below and let me know if this is the kind of video you dig. Are you digging these little tutorial videos? Because I'm digging making them. It's a lot of fun, and it keeps me honest as far as really sitting down and thinking about the shot before I get too crazy. And that's all I've got. So as always, folks, thank you very much for watching. Have fun, and happy snapping. See ya.